Now let's go ahead and learn how to create all these nodes from scratch so you can understand what's going on. So let me select everything and hit delete on the keyboard. As you see, we don't see anything. Even the scene is a node in EmberGen. So you can see here we have create a simulation node. So let's go ahead and right click and type simulation. And we're gonna select the simulation. If you right click again and type simulation, as you see, I don't see that because you can create just one simulation node in EmberGen. And let's go ahead, create a scene node. We need a scene. So let's right click and choose scene. And we're gonna click on the scene node. And again, we have create a shading node. Let's right click and type shading. We can choose the shading from here, or I can just click on the input of the shading and drag it there. And when I release the left mouse button, you can see I have a suggestion shading node. So let's click on that. And here we have connect either volume or particle pins of the scene node. So we need a particle node or a volume. So let's choose a particle. Let's type particle. And you can see here I have emitter particles. Or I can just come over here and click and drag, and I have two suggestions. We have volume and emitter particles. Let's choose emitter particles. So let's continue. And now we're gonna connect the particle to the particle and the volume to the volume. And now we have the last one, connect a lighting node to the shading node. We can right click and choose light. And we're gonna choose light ambient. You can choose point or anything you want. And connect that to the light. And here we have the scene and we have some particles there as you see. And let's continue. As you see, the background is black. I can come over here and click and drag and select sky box. Let's go ahead and let's click on the ground and click on the ground too. Let's select the skybox and I can come over the sky and change that to shade or uniform color. Let's select shade and here we see the sky, and I can control the sky intensity from here. And we can go to the ground. I can change that to, for example, checkboard or noise. Let's leave it at grid. And I like to go to the ambient light and increase that maybe to 2. And now you see the particles are emitted from one point. So we can come over shape and click and drag, and I'm gonna choose primitive. As you see now, the particles are emitted from a sphere. I can come over here and I can change that to anything I want, like cylinder. Let's see, we have the spiral, we have capsule. So let's leave it to sphere. And you'll notice the particles going outside the bounding box, because the bounding box is just for the smoke. And you can see we don't see the smoke, but if I go to the particles and if I come to the injection, and you can see the smoke is 0. If I increase that, and again I don't see the smoke, but if I go to the rendering and click on render particles, I want to turn it off. Now we can see the smoke as you see. But if I want to render the particles, as you see, the smoke is gone. So what we can do, we can go there and right click and type volume processing. And I want to connect the volume to the volume. Let's disconnect that and connect the volume to the scene. So now we can see both of them, the particles and the smoke at the same time. And now we can go to the emitter particles and I can turn off the render particles, and we can do more. For example, I can come to the forces, click and drag, and I can add a force noise. And let's go ahead and increase the amplitude. We get more noise force on the smoke, as you see. Let's go back to the emitter particles, and I can come over here. Let's scroll down. You can see we have the smoke again. I'm gonna increase the smoke amount. Let's go to the lighting and let's increase the ambient intensity. Let's go to the simulation and let's go to the combustion, and I can control how the smoke will dissipate from here. So let's increase that. The more I increase the smoke dissipation, the smoke will dissipate faster. And I can set that maybe to 200, you can see, or maybe 150. Now if you want to add a fire, it's really so simple. So let's go to the emitter particles and I can scroll down. You can see here we have the fuel and it's 0. So if I increase that, we are getting the fire. It's so easy. Let's set that maybe to 2, and I can control the fuel from here. It's fading over life. Let's move it somewhere there, and you can go to the simulation and let's go to the time control, and here you can control the speed of the simulation. For example, it's 60. If I set that maybe to 30, this is going to be faster, but be careful. If you decrease that too much, you will get some issues and flickering on the smoke, as you see. Let's leave it at 30. If you increase it too much, you will get very slow motion. So let's say 100. And we can come over here again to the forces. Let's right click and type force, and I'm gonna choose the force line. I can connect that to the force again. As you see, it gets 2 inputs. And if I select that and come over here and select the rotation, and I can rotate that, now the fire following the force line. Or you can delete that. You can come to the simulation, and if you go to the wind, you can set on which axis you want the wind to affect the fire. So let's say on X, I will set the X1 and Y to 0, and here I can increase the speed of the wind. As you see, we get almost the same result.